And good morning. Welcome to a very special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we have a variety of wise men in the studio with us today. And we'll start from number one with our engineer, Tim Smith. But my on-air guest today will be none other, and I don't think they need very much when it comes to the introduction part. My first guest is to my right, and that is Mr. Joe Person. And I don't think there's anybody in Oakland County, 12th District, and other parts surrounding that don't know the name Joe Person. And as I always think when I think about the name of Joe Person, I think this is the man that is always going to show you receipts. And when you talk to him, you better come and bring receipts as well. And then to his right is another person who's been recognized throughout the Macomb County area in the 10th District. He was the former chair of the 10th District Congressional District, and he's been recognized in so many different ways. The governor has recognized him in the position that he's held. And when it comes down to the politics of Macomb County, that's the man to go to in Macomb County. And then also we'll be joined a little bit later with another young man who has an organization called All for One, as well as so many different things he's done in the community. I mean, from giveaways to young people, to young adults, to adults. And his name is synonymous with Wayne County and Wayne County politics, and that is none other than Mr. Ishmael Terry. But, gentlemen, thank you. Welcome to this special edition of Truth to Power. So today we're going to talk about the political landscapes in the Tri-County area. And I just want to, give a shout out to the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus, and that is none other than Mr. Keith Williams, who did an op-ed piece and talked about the Pastoral Alliance when it comes to supporting candidates that are running for office. And I think I want to kind of address that part first, because I know I sent you, both copies of that op-ed that was so well written by the chair of the Michigan Democratic Party Black Caucus, Keith Williams. So, gentlemen, just want to kind of welcome to Truth to Power, and want to just kind of get your observations when you read that article and what your perceptions were after having read that article. And I'll go to you first, Joe.
Well, first, good morning, Darwin.
Good morning.
And thanks for having me. It was a well-written op-ed, that's for sure. And I think Keith made a lot of good points in there. One of the things, that over the years, I tend to stay out of Detroit politics because it's just some place that, I don't play in other people's sandbox. But I think at the same time, it's important that, especially for Black leadership, to sometimes take a pause, think about what you're doing, and because when you get behind somebody so early, that means basically you're pushing everybody else aside. And that's troubling to me. Everybody has a right to their opinion. They can certainly do what they want to do. That's, no question about that. But I always look at it as, I want to see more Black folks in office. I want to see us in positions of power so we can make real change. And, it's one of these things where that's what they choose to do. That's what they choose to do. But I just think that it's unfortunate, at least from my perspective, it's unfortunate to do that so early. Why not wait a while? The election isn't until November 26th. Why not give it some time? Let things shake out, kind of see what everybody's about, what their plans are, and not just what their promises are, but what their plans are going to be before you actually make an endorsement.
Well, before I get to you, Joe, I just wanted to say, because a lot of times people give these endorsements early, or their support early, because it gives the person who's running a little bit of traction. so that if they're trying to go and garner any kind of support, monies and things like that, that when somebody says that, well, for example, like Ishmael Terry is supporting them, then all of the supporters that love Ishmael Terry would then kind of take a notice and then may support financially as well as boots on the ground for that candidate as well. Joe, what's your thoughts?
It's just a bad look. Look, in the black community, we have revered our pastoral folks. What Keith said was, thank you for the job you've done. You've done great things. But on this issue, you're wrong. And everybody's scared to say that. You know me. Y'all know me from Oakland County. I call it like I see it. Let it shake out, as Joel said. Let it shake out and let's see. The other thing is, you got other people that are running, and being a member of the Black Caucus, we look at the black candidates that represent our agenda or our issues. I'm trying to understand why nobody wants to get behind Garland Gilchrist, and not that whether support him or not. I just think that when he's earned the right to be there, whereas other people are just talking loud and saying nothing. So Keith came out and acknowledged, thank you, pastors, for the past, but let's look at our the past, and let's look at not look at the past. Let's look at the future and what's going on right now, right here, right now. And I just think that they were wrong. And as he said, we try to stay out of everybody's sandbox and all this. Listen, what's happening to Joel over there in Macomb County is happening to me in Oakland County. What's happening to Joel and me in Oakland County is happening to Terry Ishmael and everybody over there in Wayne County. We need to stop this because like my family always say, the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. We're supposed to stick together on some issues. And we're separated. We're all over the place.
Well, it makes me think about the adage, since you're bringing up, things that people have said. It's like, he ain't heavy, he's my brother. Right. And that's what it kind of boils down to at the same time to me, gentlemen. And, as it stands right now, we've got a lot of important midterm elections next year that we have to, address. We've got the gubernatorial election. For those that may not know, that the hierarchy when it comes down to the governor, the attorney general, and the secretary of state, all are going to be term limited out. So they have to then go and step aside so that the heir can come in and take over the gubernatorial, the secretary of state, as well as the attorney general spot. We also have a very important Senate race.
Yes.
That's going to exist. We lost both of our senators, the senior senators that we've had in both Debbie Stabenow and in Gary Peters. So now that Gary Peters has indicated that he's not running for re-election, now we have to then go and find a person that people can galvanize around and get them into that office. And now we've got several people that are coming out now, early, and indicating for next year that they are running. As both of you know, you don't wait till next year to run that race in 2026. You're running it now in 2025. So the thing is that I'm going to ask both of you too, just real quick. When looking at this race for next year, what are some of the things that kind of stand out to you? And I want to also talk about the current races in 2025, for like city council in your districts, as well as mayoral races, because those are getting a lot of tenure. But what would your advice, Joe, be to the candidate, let's say, for example, that's running for that position, let's say for governor or for Senate next year? And we got a lot of other races too, because you got state rep races, you got congressional district races. So so many. But what's Joe Person's advice to candidates that are running next year?
You need to run. You need to knock. You need to talk to the folks, the activists, the boots on the ground that actually do the work, not the show horses. If you notice, when everybody says they're running for office, they'll have a campaign kickoff. None of the people who actually do the work will get an invite. All of the show horses will come out, and then when you ask them for some receipts, that person generally loses because he had all of the show horses. It's simple as that. Politics is a game of, it's a blood sport. Either you're going to fight or you're going to, get beat down. If you're fighting, that means you got to fight every day. That means you got to go out there and work every day. That means you got to knock doors every day. You got to talk to people that you're not comfortable talking with. And one of the things about in Southfield, when you look at the voting folks there, we get high numbers because I don't talk to just the Democrats. I talk to the Republicans, the independents. I talk to the people who could care less about the political process. But they turn out, and we do 84% in elections. There's a reasoning behind that madness, but everybody doesn't want to accept it. So you need to knock early, talk to people. You're going to raise money, but more importantly, talk to the people who are the local yokels, as a lot of people say.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a difference right there.
Yes, for sure.
Joe?
Sure. I mean, you got to knock all the doors, like Joe said. You got to be out there talking to people and connecting with people, because the fact of it is, we run into that in Macomb County, especially when you get into, say, Warren or, Roseville, East Point and things. There's a lot of people there that'll say they've never met somebody running for office or never met an elected official. So they look at it as, what's my reason to vote? And that's an issue. And that's something that we definitely try to do all we can, but it's something that we also need that help from the candidates. But the candidates have to put themselves out there. And like Joe said, you just can't be going to Democratic events and being in these comfortable, crowds that you feel like nobody's going to challenge you or be up in your face about stuff. You got to be everywhere and anywhere. And especially when you're talking about statewide races, I'll be honest, I'm endorsing Garland Gilchrist because the reason is, he's always showed up. Anytime we needed him there in the county, he showed up. And not just to show up for a photo op, but with deliverables, with things that he's saying that, hey, this is what he and the governor are working on, that they're trying to do. And I give him credit for that. And it's not to knock anybody else. But again, I want to see him as lieutenant governor move into the governor's spot. Because to me, he's prepared for it. He's done his time as the LG. Let's move him on up.
You know what? I'm definitely going to endorse him as Joe Person. I'll get back to the Black Caucus in Southfield and them endorsing down the road. But you're right, Joe. He has been there. I forget about when we were trying to get some food out to some folks. And I just happened to pick up the phone and just call him, I'll call the governor. I'll call the lieutenant governor to see what happens. Next thing I know, somebody else called me and told me who to call somebody else. And they told me to call, but we got it done. I've never seen that with any of the other candidates. They talk a talk, but they don't walk a walk. And Garland has been there, 6 years? And I'm going to go one step further. Everybody's scared to say this. I've never seen a governor not endorse her second in command if he's running for office. I've never seen that. Republican or Democrat, and I've been around the block a couple of times. Whether it was Texas, in the Maryland, Virginia. We can go on and on. Any state that I've lived, I've never seen that. This is a first for me, and I just knew when I heard. I said, "Oh, the governor's going to endorse." She hasn't. That's not to say she won't. And I'm not being apologetic about it. He's running. That's been your second in command. He's been out here in the trenches in places that she didn't go to. He went. He represented her.
Yeah, I've seen him all over the state.
So I need to
both
see
the upper and the lower peninsula.
Yes.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So now then the question is that, do you think that she's waiting? Because right now, here it is, the 1st of May. Do you think she's waiting until maybe like the fall to come out with an endorsement?
Do I get to answer this first?
Either one.
Go ahead, Joe.
Listen. This is her going into her 7th year.
Mm-hmm.
So that means he's been there 7 years with her.
Mm-hmm.
He went and campaigned and helped her, win back. Was it 2018, right? 2018? He's been there. You don't have to get to know him. The other candidates you have to maybe get to know. But him, he's been there. That's not rocket science. You don't need a PhD.
But let me play devil's advocate. Jocelyn Benson was there with her, even though not in the capacity of lieutenant governor, but they all ran collectively, where you had the governor, the AG, and the Secretary of State all ran on that same ticket. They all ran on that same ticket to get reelected 3 years ago, as well. So do you think, in terms of, say, that, as you were saying, that is her second in command, and there's a lot of places that, and that's the reason why she picked him, because of the effectiveness that he would be as a lieutenant governor. But now my question is that there's loyalties to him, naturally, as you were saying, but there's also some loyalties to Jocelyn Benson as well. So what's your take on that?
Look, I'm a military man.
Both of you are.
Both of us are, retired military men. Anybody, if Joel was my second in command and I move aside, in the military we do this. Joel know what I'm talking about. We tap him on the shoulder. That means that's my guy. That's who we roll with. I'm sorry, I can't go down that road that was somebody else. You chose Garland Gilchrist. Garland Gilchrist brought the black vote. And let's be real, the Democratic base in this state, in America, is the black race. 92% of black women, 78% of black men voted for Kamala Harris. That's 85%. We are the base. In this election, they got all these different folks running for governor. If all of us get behind Garland, he wins it. He wins the primary. Then the question becomes, will everybody out there in the Democratic Party vote for this black man? That's the thing. That's the elephant in the room. Let's deal with the elephant. I'm just tired of this. I got to be nice. I got to say things so this appeases somebody. Damn, daggone it. I didn't do what I did in the military, neither did Joel, for us to be here. We got to dance around and be nice because we're worried about what somebody thinks. I already know what you think of me. They talk about you being handicapped in America. I'm a black man living in America. I got to be 3 steps ahead because they're going to take back 2. Let's stop this right now. We're dealing with some situations in this country, and black folk don't get the credit that they deserve. We don't get the money that we deserve. All we get is mouth, conversation. We put these folks in, and yet the few people that we've put in position, and that's to say, I applaud the governor for putting in Judge Hood, putting a black man back on the state Supreme Court. I applaud her for putting Kyra Harris Bowden, who's a member of the Southfield Lathrop Village Democratic Club, on the Supreme Court. But at the end of the day, we need to stop this playing, and let's all of us say, okay, it's time for us to step up and endorse somebody that we believe in, and all of us get behind them. We need to create a movement behind Garland Gilchrist, the same way we created a movement by Barack Hussein Obama. Simple as that.
So now, since we're talking about the gubernatorial race, here we've got a couple other people besides Jocelyn, besides Garland, that also have declared that they want to seek that same seat. One person that has said that he wants to seek that seat decided that he wants to run as an independent. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on that?
I look at it like this. He didn't want to have a difficult primary race, So he looked at it as, you know what, I'll opt out and run as an independent. Now that to me doesn't show much political courage, because that basically shows like, well, you know what, I don't want to deal with all that. I'm going to go over here on my own. The problem with that is I could see where, depending on, you know, how things go, he could pull enough Democratic votes that we end up with my missing in action Congressman John James as governor. So we got to look at it that way. You know, I'm like, he can do whatever he wants. But I agree with Joe. We have to get behind Garland, because the fact of it is that it's time. I'm tired of looking at other states. Look at Westmore in Maryland. You know, having black governors, black senators, and here's Michigan still dragging along. And that's really what it comes down to. And I think when Governor Whitmer's done a lot of great things. I'm not going to take that away from her. But now she's playing it safe. Now is not the time to be safe, because you know what? We have someone in the White House who we see is not playing it safe. And he will put us back into Jim Crow as soon as he possibly can. And that's what he's working on. So time to play safe and time to be politically correct, those days are over with. Because like I've told people, I'm too old to see this going on again. I remember March for the Civil Rights Act in 64, Voting Rights Act in 65. Never thought we'd be back in this situation. But here we are, and this is what we have to deal with. So it's time to make sure that we don't allow the Democratic Party or the Republican Party to take us for granted. We start looking out for our own. We start doing what we need to do to make sure we get people in there that care about us.
You know, the reason why the civil rights movement was so successful, people don't know that Martin Luther King was a Republican. They don't know Medgar Evers. I mean, we can go on and on about who was a Republican and who was a Democrat or who was independent back then. But the one thing about we all agreed on, if the Republicans got in, we had a black agenda that was for our people. If you were the Democrats and you got in, we had a black agenda for our people. It is time for us to get an agenda together. And as he said, it's time out for playing safe. Like Joel said, we've already done this. Ladies and gentlemen, I was there when Martin Luther King did the speech, and most people don't know that speech was done that day, but it did not get telecasted that day. It was 2 weeks later that they put it in the Washington Post. That's why I said people don't know the history, because they videotaped events then. They had to go back and they had to develop them and then take them to the station.
Yeah, edit them and do all that.
Right. They brought Martin Luther King on later because they didn't want him to come on at 5 on the 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock news then with Walter Cronkite and them. So that's what they did. I've been through all of this where we didn't support who was supporting us. Garland has been there. It's time for us to say, let's throw caution to the wind. And then let me tell you this while I'm there.
Because we got to take a break in the
Right.
second.
Other black people need to step up. Hill Harper and all of them who ran, bring your 200,000 votes to the table. Get out there and campaign and help us. All of these folks, Pamela Pugh, all of these folks that are losing, so forth, Adam Hollier, we can go on and on, Al B.J. Williams, and all of these folks that we got, if all of us come together and we bring our people to the table, he can win this, he can win the primary. Then the question becomes, will the people that don't look like him and us, will they vote for him? That's the elephant in the room. And I'm tired of just dancing around that.
All right. We will be right back. We're going to take a quick break, and we will be right back on Truth to Power. So stay tuned.
I'm Deborah Geraldine Bledsoe Ford, and I want to tell you about Michigan's other first family of law. My grandfather, Attorney Harold Bledsoe, became the first Assistant Attorney General in the state of Michigan. 2 of his 3 children were judges, Geraldine Bledsoe Ford and William Felga Bledsoe. My husband, Attorney Jerome Watson, was one of the first Black partners in Miller Canfield. and I became a judge in 2005, following in my family's footsteps.
Muscles, joints, or feet tired, achy, or distressed? Tried everything? Ringmaster Rubbing Oil is a vintage topical pain reliever, trusted for over 70 years, with a rich formula for the treatment of stubborn aches and pains. Packaged in a glass bottle for purity, our liquid can also be used in warm water for foot soaks and compresses. A little goes a long way. Try our time-tested formula, available in several sizes.
Make a donation to WHBR-TV and receive 2 2-ounce bottles of Ringmaster Rubbing Oil for $25. Call 313-868-6612.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in a home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Mattered. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
And we are back with this very special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. And as you see, we've got the other legend in the Detroit area, Wayne County area. And he probably needs very little introduction as well, too. And that is Mr. Les Little. Mr. Les Little had me on his podcast before, on his internet radio show, along with Carl Baxter. And now I'm going to get a chance to return the favor to him as well on my show today. And he's with The Vote Is Our Voice. And then to his right is the other legend in the city of Detroit, and that is Mr. All for One, Ishmael Terry. But gentlemen, welcome to this special edition of Truth to Power.
Well, thanks for having us.
Let me kind of, you know, I wanted to kind of mix the show a little bit with a little bit of the sports that we had a game that some people know about last night, you know, with the Pistons. Mm-hmm. But I know that'd be another whole half an hour because, you know, we could talk about that part. But I just want to say, and I'll just let each of you just say real quick and give it like a 30-second, you know, spot. I just want to say I'm very proud of the Pistons and the effort that they put in these playoffs. I mean, in every game, there's somebody who wins and there's somebody that falls short. It's not to say that they lost. It's just to say that they may have fell short from winning. You know, I heard that from Pat Riley saying that to Magic and the rest of them, you know, beforehand. But the John Woodens of UCLA eras and, you know, folks, you still have to keep people motivated. But again, I just want to say to Bickerstaff, the coach, to Kate Cunningham, to some of the other players that played their hearts out. And I mean, they really gave their hearts to the game last night. So just real quick, Ishmael, I'll get your 30-second take on the Pistons and their season. I'll do the same thing with you.
They're probably 2 players away. They're probably another center away because you've seen what happens when Isaiah Stewart is not playing, right? Durgan only can do so much, right, as a big body. You know, he's really their only true power forward because they're really playing like how the Lakers play. 2 power forwards, a bunch of small forwards, and a bunch of big guards. So playing that way, when you play against bigger players, they did a yeoman's work. They hung in there tough. They gave a tremendous fight, but Malik and all the rest of them, Tim Hardaway Jr., he is only going to do so much. We've seen that in the Dallas series when he played in the finals, right? He didn't even play that much, right? So the Pistons are probably a couple of guards away, a center away They're allowing the NBA to play a little bit more physical now, as we saw in each playoff game across the United States. And so they just need a real strong center, 280, 300-pound center, 7-footer, as well as maybe 2 more guards. And they'll be all right.
Well, before I let you speak on that, Les, real quick, it's interesting, Ishmael, when you said that about the guards, that I had heard a rumor that they may be interested in Ja Morant to come here.
Why would he come here?
Well,
it's
that's the thing. They're talking about it's a smaller market, right?
But Ja Morant wouldn't come here because it's too small of a market. It's smaller than the Memphis market. So why would he come to a smaller market than what it is already in Memphis? No, I would believe that he would go to a team like New York, Los Angeles, maybe Clippers, maybe Lakers, a larger market, because he's given 7 to 9 years in a smaller market in Memphis. So, you're talking jersey sales, you're talking about playoff opportunities,
and you're also talking about off the court.
Correct. So the environment, you're talking about, even though the taxes in Michigan is different than the taxes in Los Angeles and New York, you're talking about all of the increments that comes with those taxes, though, that's in that area, those type of entertainment that's in that area, right, that you have at your resources. So, but you don't have that here in Detroit. Okay. But it's coming. It'll come. In the next about 4 or 5 years, you'll start seeing some things here in Detroit will make people more anxious about moving back.
Okay, Les?
Well, I have to disagree with you about that small market. We're talking about Detroit, okay? All right. This is a worldwide known city, okay? Mm-hmm. And the market is worldwide. Motown, sound. And you play here, you will be known. But like I said, I think we just got shafted. Sunday, we got shafted. And yesterday, if everybody was seeing, I was watching that clip, that off arm. I'm not taking anything away from the Knicks. They got a good team, okay? But it was a couple of plays that was questionable that could have got us in the game. I don't know if it's the call, that last call, not call a foul on a 3-pointer on the last play of the game. You don't do that. That's just that you ain't gonna do. And don't have me talk about Stephen A. Smith.
Oh,
okay. All right. But I say that I like what Bernie Bickerstaff did with the team this year. It looked good. Like I said, I won't say we are player away. I just think we just ran out of time. We was in every game we played. Just the Knicks just gotta, had this superstar on the team. That's all. He was hot.
Something somebody said to me, and they said that it was designed for the Knicks to win this playoff, because the Knicks are more of a media, draw.
Correct.
If you put the game that the Pistons made versus the Knicks against another team, right, people are going to be more drawn to the TV sets to watch the Knicks play versus to see the Pistons, play. Right. But the thing that I just see is that what happened was that we've got some great teams here in the city of Detroit. Mm-hmm. The Red Wings were the only team that didn't make it into the playoffs.
That's this year.
Looking at the Tigers now, the Tigers right now have won more games this season than any other baseball team has won. Now, just think if they can carry this along the entire season, this would be phenomenal here.
I'm not going to blame your political views. I'm going to tackle less on this with baseball, because in the 80s.
I'm going to tackle less on this.
I love baseball. I played softball for 10 years. Okay,
no.
But when they took the money away from the inner city in baseball, I stopped supporting baseball. That's me. I mean, I'm just an activist like that. And I just heard the conversation before. If we don't stick together, we ain't gonna never get anywhere. But I see all these rap guys going around wearing the baseball gear. They were still supporting baseball indirectly. But if we don't spend our money in the right way, we'll never get ahead. Especially when they've been taking the generation of dollars away from us for years now. So we don't have that generational wealth because of the way this system of government has been tweeted towards African America. So,
well, let me throw it now. Let's switch the gear to the political part. Now we've got several races, next year. So I was addressing it to Joe and Joel in terms of looking at the gubernatorial race and then also the Senate race. We talked a little bit about the gubernatorial race. Let's talk about the Senate race now, because, Gary Peters, as most people know, is stepping down. He's not running for re-election. Now you've got several people that have made announcements that they want to run for that spot. Mallory McMorrow, the state senator, has already come out and announced that she's running for that seat.
Haley
Stevens,
correct,
the congresswoman in the 11th district, has announced that she is running for that seat. So now the question is that, and then I'm not sure about some of the other folks that, because it's kind of trying to remember to keep a scorecard, who's running for governor, who's running for Senate. But the thing is that there's also talk about where are the black women that we could elevate and to run for that Senate seat. Mallory McMorrow, people question because she beat Marshall Bullock for when he was running for re-election for that state Senate seat. And people are saying now she doesn't have, as Joe Person says, the receipts for all of the political acumen that people are saying that other people have, like Haley Stevens has, or somebody else that may want to run, for that seat. So what's your thoughts? What do you hear on the streets? I know, Les, you're in the community. Ishmael, you're in the community. What do you hear in terms, say, about especially that Senate race that's coming up? Les.
Well, not too much, but unlike the last guest, the party system here for the Democratic Party have not served us well. And the elected officials that represent us have not really fought for us. Now, if we had a Jasmine Crockett here, you know what I mean? A lot of folks would know it, but we don't have that outspoken leadership, and we need more outspoken leadership, young, outspoken leadership to carry us through in the 21st century. If they're not outspoken, then what? Don't run. We don't need it. It's a new dynamic in Washington, D.C. that we got to combat. And if we don't have a strong person to go in there and fight that craziness that's going on in Washington, D.C., well, don't run. Step back. So I'm waiting for the party. I have a wait and see attitude right now. I'm still watching. I'm still observing. I haven't made any decisions on. No, I did like Garland Gilchrist because he has been around. I run into him several times in the community, and when he ran, he was on my show. So I know this young man personally. So I ain't opposed to having an African American governor at this time.
Do you think that? Okay, now we know that Sheriff Genesee County Chris Swanson is also running for that governor seat. Chris is definitely well liked in the Genesee County area.
True.
Do you think that he may, and especially by a lot of black supporters, in that area, do you think that he may pull some of the black support from Garland?
Yes.
Ishmael?
Yes, wholeheartedly. Okay, so let's follow after Joe and Joel. Okay, y'all can kick this can down the road as many times as y'all want. I'm going to put this diagram up right here of the glove. When I ran Deborah Thomas for Supreme Court Justice, we went up there to Macomb, your listening audience. We went up there, this part of right here, the Midwest.
Well, it's our viewing audience since you showed us.
Excuse me, the western portion of Michigan. This portion right here decided that they didn't want a black woman to be Supreme Court Justice. They told us you can't put the lawn signs down. You can't do none of those things. They got ordinance and codes that won't allow blacks to be able to put yard signs out and literature out with your face on it. I've seen that firsthand. Okay? So imagine Garland Gilchrist, a 6'6", 215, 220 pound dark as maroon sky. Walk out of the sky and walk on people porches up in this portion of Michigan. You talking Macomb, you talking Warren, you talking Bay City, Saratoga, Traverse City. I can go up the line up here. Okay? All of them going to be like, no. They're going to be like, no. We used to call in the 90s Michigan the Mississippi of the Midwest for a reason. Y'all keep going around. Why you think that Governor Whitmer ain't selecting Garland Gilchrist? She going to select Jocelyn Benson. Y'all might not like this, but Jocelyn Benson is going to be the darling of Michigan. She's going to use the language of, I kept Trump out of office, out of Michigan. We kept our voting base locked up because of me. They're going to vote for her in Livonia. They're going to vote for her in Mackinac. They're going to vote for her in Traverse City. All of these areas, Marquette, they're all going to vote for Jocelyn Benson. This is a two-party state. The reason why Duggan is not running as a Republican, because he's like Andy Dillon. He's not like Mike Bishop. Mike Bishop is going to tell you, I'm a Republican. Anytime that your Democratic mayor is sitting there with the Speaker of the House at Matt Hall up in Lansing and sitting there in plain sight telling you something in y'all face, in y'all black faces. But y'all black people want to get up there and run and say, well, Duggan is the best thing since sliced bread. For who? Because 30-mile radius outers downtown Detroit, ask them. Ask the people that live in Kercheval. Ask them in Mack and Bewick. Ask them over there on Dexter and Linwood. Ask them in those areas. Ask them on 7 Mile. Ask them on 6 Mile, McNichols area. They're going to tell you no. Why? But if you say downtown, you say Midtown, you say Corktown, where all of the $475 million economic development projects are going up, when they sold half of the Renton Towers so they can build those new condos and others, where in 2020 and 2048, they're going to stretch Fort Street all the way down to Belle Isle and charge you 7% more in taxes, increment taxes, to build that. But y'all as black people want to keep going down this rabbit hole. Yeah, put your money up. See, the one thing that nobody is telling you about us politicians is this. $1 just as matters as $5 and $10 and $20. But if you don't give nothing at all to a person like me to run for office, why would I subject myself to you? You get what I'm saying to you? You follow where I'm going? Listen, all y'all is doing this conversation. That's great. But when I run for office, I've been in this for 34 long years. I've had an opportunity to work with everyone from Clyde, Cleveland, and everybody. But that don't mean I won. I lost twice. And the second time,
you fell short twice.
Well, no, I lost. I lost the second time because of the Democratic Party decided to go against me instead of helping me or stay out of my business and let me win the race. So while y'all talking about the Democratic Party needs to do this and need to do that, the party needs to go ahead and find themselves somebody that has comprehensive integrity and allegiance. That's how this starts, with a platform. Then after that, then you get people to start putting money in that. After that, you start figuring out who is a part of this system that's going to allow this party to have a voice. Because in the Senate and in the House, both U.S., I told people in before, this is how you get rid of somebody like Trump. You fill those seats up in the Senate and the House so you can get rid of the appointments. So you can make sure that those signed executive orders does not get passed through. But everybody was so focused on Kamala Harris and the Democratic Party that you lost the message. So now you get a chance to regain some strategy back. You get to gain some of the Democratic Party structure back here. You're going to have to lay in the bed with Oakland County. They're one of the richest counties in the United States. and here in Michigan. You can't be afraid to go talking to them if you're running for governor. But then the people in Oakland County, those Armenians, Jewish, Middle Eastern, all of them that live in Oakland County, has to have an open door policy to listen to the message that's clear enough for them to feel like they're a part of this. No one is selling the dream of we can all work together. Everybody's selling individuality. So while this party is talking individuality, while I'm Haley Stevens, or I'm John James, and I'm all of that, you're still human. You still have a responsibility, an emotional and a judgmental responsibility to look at yourself and say, am I the fit that Michigan needs to go to? And then you'll start seeing it fall down the line. These people that's running for office now, they're not like what I used to be around. They're not. It's a lot of self-interest. It's a lot of, hey, and I'm gonna say this truthfully. It's a lot of people that taking dark money to be able to run. You can't run as mayor of the city with only $500. You need $1 million just to start off. You need almost $5 million to run as a Senate to start off. U.S. House and Senate. Most of these people ain't even got that kind of money. So they're gonna fall short. This will run this gambit in mid-June, early July. You'll start seeing people falling off.
Well, something that you said, and Les, Ishmael, I want you to address this part. We've talked about this before with Joel, other people I've had on the show. People talk about where are our buddy battles? Where are our Conyers, Diggs, others, Ernie Loftons? Where are they at today?
Right here.
Where?
Right here in front of you.
In terms of so you're saying the Ishmael Terrys.
Correct.
The Les Littles.
Correct.
The Joel Rutherfords. The Joel Persons.
You got to understand, when a torch is passed, you got to be able to accept it. The mantle has been passed. It was supposed to go to Kilpatrick. Let's be honest. It was supposed to go to Kwame, myself, and a few others. As far as the next generation. Okay, we had a fell off. But you get people like me who want to come in here and lead by example.
Why did it fall off?
Because we couldn't get in communication with our elders. Our elders still want to be young and vibrant and still want to run things. They still want to be in charge of everything. And you trying to tell them, hey, man, I hold you in revere. But this is a new era. You got to let this go. Okay? Don't be afraid to let it go. It's fine. We're going to hold you accountable. But we're going to take what you have taught and we're going to run with it. I'm not afraid to sit there with Horace Sheffield now and watch Mary Sheffield come up. Because I sat there with Damon Keith. I sat there with Adam Shakur. I sat there with Les Little. I sat there with you. I sat there with these two fine gentlemen. You learn as you go. That's what leadership is about. Can your message carry on to what you taught me? That's what it's about. But if you do it in a sneaky, conniving kind of way, it's going to bite you in the butt. And that's what's been happening in our black communities. Everybody wants to be a leader.
Not me.
Everybody wants to be one. But nobody knows what's the integral parts of doing this. Are you willing to get up at 2 and 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and figure out what's the next solution to build? Do you want to take $475 million of tip money and make sure that it goes to rebuilding homeless shelters, right? Do you want to use $380 million in Rescue Act money and build entertainment centers in the downtown area, but build nothing in the inner city areas? That's what leadership is about, making those tough decisions and understanding there's going to be drawbacks. But are you willing to stand up and say, you know what, I'm doing this for the right reason, for long-term success, not short-term?
Can I speak as a senior citizen here? I'll be 72 next month, okay? All right. And I have never wanted to step out in the front You know, even the late great Joan Watson told me this on this show and on this set here. That says she seen me in the public for years and never wanted to jump in front of the camera and grab the mic. That's not me. I've always been a behind the scenes kind of guy, developing talent. That's this production, developing. I got to defend the senior citizens when it comes to the youth too. The youth of today are not like the youth that we came up with. They have a different attitude and a different ideology than we had. And it's all about me, myself, and I. It's never been about a collective group of working together. That's how we were brought up. But it was the music, too, that reflected that, too. We had that music to reflect a working attitude. Not the youth music of today, where they pretty much have adversarial and want to be alone and say, this mine, and this is, and I'm going to make mine and forget you. We had a collective. That village was there. Now it's not. You don't have it on the block. You can feel it in the air. But it was all by design to destroy African America. It wasn't just their fault. It was the system's fault. They jammed certain things down their throat where they had to accept it or not. See, we didn't accept what they had to offer. We fought for ours. See, I don't think they didn't even know how to fight. And they don't know the history that they have is great. And I play it on my show every Tuesday and Saturday. It's the history. In fact, tomorrow is a historic day, May 3rd. It may not register to you guys, but it registered to me, and it's going to register to me to our day I die. 8 buses left here in Detroit, went to Cincinnati, Ohio. Cincinnati, Ohio, to the 6th Circuit Court of Appeal to fight the emergency manager law. But 8 buses out of a city that had over 1 million people? Come on. It should have been 800 buses. At the minimum, 80 buses would have been. The streets of Cincinnati should have been filled that day. Well, May 3rd, 2002 should have been registered to them until today. But it wasn't. Fascism was under attack, and we failed to answer. That's us, on us. If you in my generation, if you stayed home and didn't do anything, it's on us. That's why we have the problems we got now. When you come to the most populated African-American city in the damn country, and and you don't do nothing, you don't guard, you don't step up to the plate, and you don't guard the future generations to come. You came in here and took over a school board that I voted for, and just took them out and put them in a selective board. What is that? That's fascism. So if we didn't fight fascism then, how did they understand fighting fascism now?
So I'm going to respond to this.
And we've got 1 minute.
Okay. So most of you gentlemen here are well older than me. I'm 53. Okay. And I'm going to be the most honest way I can be. It's y'all fault anyway. Because in the 60s and up into the 70s, y'all was black power this. We fighting this. We educating our black people this. We got the Black Panthers. We got all of these things going on. But by mid-70s, y'all stopped doing that. It started getting to self and I. I'm just going to teach my kids to do this. Or I'm going to give my kids, I made it through the plan, or I made it as a doctor or lawyer, whatever. I did all of that. But I'm just going to feed it to my kids and to my nephews and my cousins and all of that. I'm going to make them generational this way. Well, what about the ones that wasn't in your family? See, back in y'all days, when I was coming up in y'all era, because I'm a 70s baby, early 70s, late 69, 70. I was in your home just as much as your own family was. And you was educating us on black power and black knowledge and all of those things. But by mid-70s up into the 80s, that stopped. So now you got all of these people out here, these younger than me, Gen Zs and all. They all like, well, why I gotta listen to y'all? Y'all not doing it. Y'all didn't do it back then. Why would I listen to you now? You can tell me all of the things I'm doing wrong now, but you ain't taught me how to do this. I had to teach myself how to ride my bike. I had to teach myself how to be a father. I had to teach myself how to be a husband. I had to do all of that with one person in the house.
Now I'm going to teach you how we got to take a break.
Okay. All right.
So we got to take a break. We'll be right back, and we're going to bring Joe and Joel, J&J, back up here again to speak on what we've just heard from Les Little and Ishmael Terry. We'll be right back.
Every Monday through Friday from 12 noon to 3 p.m., it's the Tavis Smiley Show on WHPR TV and Radio 15.2. Also seen on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV, iPhone, and Android. That's the Tavis Smiley Show on WHPR TV and Radio. Download the WHPR TV app for iOS, Android, and Roku. The Tavis Smiley Show, distributed by RJ Watkins Studios.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Florine Jackson thought she had it all until she was faced with the challenges of raising an autistic child. Inspired by autism is her brutally honest journey filled with heartbreak and triumph. Get your copy and find the support you deserve today by visiting www.claudinejackson.tv.
Feel good about your future with tuition-free programs at Wayne County Community College District. Whether you want to be in healthcare, computer science, the culinary arts, digital media, or robotics and automation for the next generation of vehicles, WCCCD has you covered. A full range of programs to achieve your goals, fit your schedule, and give you all the support you need to be successful. All of it tuition-free. Now there's something to feel good about. Register today at wcccd.edu.
Into the I Love the Hustle show, Saturday afternoons at 12 p.m., followed by Mr. Smooth's Ballroom and Steppers Express Dance Show on WHPR 15.2 Detroit, Apple TV, Roku, and many streaming platforms. See you Saturday.
You're watching WHPS, Highland Park, Detroit.
WGPR Detroit HD2.
A special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we are rejoined by J&J, Joe Person, Joe Rutherford. So let's talk a little bit about if you have any comments pertaining to what you heard from Les and from Ishmael. I'll give you a chance to respond to that, and if not, then we'll move on to another topic.
I want to say one thing about baseball that Les mentioned. It's true that's what happened as far as, a lot of playgrounds, a lot of baseball diamonds in the city were just eliminated. Now, if you go to the Dominican Republic, they're everywhere. And you know what? Look how many Dominicans you got playing Major League Baseball, because it's something that they push. It's something that hasn't been pushed here. So it makes a difference. It's like everything else. Your budget reflects what your real priorities are.
The other thing, when I go on cruises down in Dominican Republic or any of those countries down there, when they take you on a tour, they make it a point to take you to where whoever is playing in the Major League Baseball league, They make sure that you know who they are. This is the diamond they started on. This is where they learn to pitch. This is where they learn to throw, a ball, bat, so forth and so on. And like you said, they took away, in all of the cities across the country, urban settings, they took away baseball, the rec centers. That was that 3 to 6 that kids get into trouble, or from 6 to 8. They don't have that no more. That's why when you look at the crime rate in certain communities, it's higher between 3 and 6 than any other time during the day.
Well, one thing I want to kind of switch gears a little bit too, and thank you for that comment, but I want to switch gears for a minute. Both of you are veterans. And, news, we saw that 47 was here the other day. Mm-hmm. And he, was here, and the governor, Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, was there, as well. And I'm sure other, elected officials in the area. But the governor has gotten a lot of comments pertaining to the visit, and how everybody kind of seemed like they played nicey with each other. I'll ask you both, since you both are veterans and you know what the whole purpose of his visit here, besides when he was in Macomb County, right. Speaking to the, to some of his supporters there. But when he was there at Selfridge Air Force Base and looking at the military, people that were behind him and, watching, everything and watching all of the monies, because there was a concern about whether or not we were going to keep Selfridge Air Force Base, open. Mm-hmm. So, Joel, I'll let you speak to that first, and then Joe, because of your military background, speak to it as well. But Joel.
Well, for me, the governor has to do what she has to do. She's trying to keep Selfridge open. I'm not mad with her about that. Because the thing about it is, I started my air traffic control career in 1974 at Selfridge. I finished it up 8.5 years ago at Selfridge as a federal civil service employee. So, Selfridge means something to me. I want to see the base stay open. What I'm concerned about is this. They announced that there's going to be 21 F-15EX aircraft coming into that. The only thing is, there's no funding for it. That funding has to happen because those airplanes aren't slated until 29. The funding right now for the F-15EX only goes through 28. And what I'm concerned about is don't fall for the okie doke. Because it'd be easy to sit here and say, oh, look at all this stuff we're having. My thing was, there's other aircraft that you could bring in there. You could have more tankers, you could have transport, you could bring ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance aircraft, and they don't cost $97 million a piece. So you take $97 million times 21, you're over $2 billion that you're spending on that. And that's what my concern is, because, this administration has shown us they'll lie about anything, especially to get votes. And that's what I want to make sure that the public understands that. Like I said, I understand what Gretchen Whitmer's doing as governor. She's got to look out for the entire state. She's got to keep the base open. But be careful, because you just can't trust 47.
I couldn't have said it any better. The other thing is that, I was at a State Central Committee meeting this past Sunday, and everybody was talking about let's say not everybody, but a lot of people were talking about what she did, and she shouldn't have did this, and she shouldn't have did that. Most of the people don't even understand military structure. They don't understand our defense. We need all of everything that Joel is speaking of, and then some. We definitely need our listening airplanes, our surveillance, our new stealth, bombers, but we got some new stealth listening planes that are incredible. We can listen to us talk here, and they're in Alaska, but we haven't brought those to the table. The governor is a Democrat, but when she became governor, she didn't just represent Democrats. She represents Republicans, independents, people who don't vote, will vote, should vote, but didn't vote. So I'm not angry with her. And the people that I heard that were Democrats in that room at the State Central Committee meeting this past Sunday, they all were talking about she shouldn't have did this, she shouldn't have did that. I get what Joel is saying. Right now we need some things done. 47 lies. And we know he lies. So like you say, until we see it, I'll believe it. But I don't want the governor to stop working with him or anybody else across the aisle, because he may actually do something. And if he does, I want us to be, the benefactors of that.
Yeah, because if it doesn't go to Selfridge, it's going to go somewhere else.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the thing.
I mean, my other concern is this. 47 just came out and said he wants $1 trillion defense budget. $1 trillion for defense. Now, we spend more than the next 8 countries on defense. But like when I look at Macomb County, I'm like, okay, it's great you're bringing $2 billion worth of jets in there. But what you doing for veterans? I'm on the Veteran Service Committee. We do as much as we can. I've been asking for, can we get affordable housing? Can we get better public transportation? Can we do all these things that not only will help veterans, but will help everybody? And what I hear from electeds, I don't care which side of the aisle they're on, it's always like, we don't have money. Well, if you spend $1 trillion on defense, you probably won't have money. And that's what I'm concerned about. Dwight Eisenhower warned about that, about the military-industrial complex back when his time was done as president in 59 and 60. So that's what I want to make sure of is we have to balance it out. We can't get so caught up in that all of a sudden, we keep on with the same old refrain of there's no money for the poor people. What Tupac say, you got money for war but not to feed the poor? Come on, you got to do better.
The other thing is that Abraham Lincoln said, don't trust corporate America. And that was in 1862. And here we are, corporate America. The military-industrial complex is actually running the country. People don't understand out there in the real world. War, most of us haven't been to war. Like I said, I put people in the ground about war, so I know about it up close, this close to where you and I are at. It's not good. Most men that go to war, that have been to war, I'm basically a pacifist until you step in my arena and I got to defend. Then that's the side you don't want to see. They're renting out our military all over the United States. All over the world. We're not just defending America. We're defending the world. And when you have a nut in the White House that is doing things that are contrary to what our democratic beliefs are, what the U.S. Constitution was written for, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We got to decide to make a decision. We got to decide who the people that we put in office. That's why we come back to the local, and I'm going to segue into your local that you said. Listen, Republicans said, in order to defeat Democrats, let's take away their city councils, their county commissioners, their school boards. That's exactly what's happening right here now at the local level. We have a republic. Oh, not to mention our city clerk. Remember, we did the ballot initiative and shot down the ballot initiative so we could vote for our own city clerk and treasurer. Right now, they're trying to removed actually, our city clerk is not running. Janet Jackson in Southfield is not running for city clerk. But everything is good because there's a Miss Gwinnett Y, a guy that's running for city clerk, a good Democrat. But we got to get behind it. But then the Republicans right now are filing complaints against her. They're going to challenge her signatures to keep her off the ballot. Well, we Democrats need to come together in Oakland County and say, if we want this young lady in, put your money behind her, get out there and work and do things right. Because Republicans continue to fight 24/7. We rest on our laurels and then we don't do anything. That's why, to Mr. Ishmael Terry's comment that he made about we're not educating our young people, and that's why they feel like they feel. If a young person comes to me and says, hey, Joe, teach me parliamentary procedure, and I tell them I ain't got time for you. Well, when it comes time, he looks at that. Well, if Mr. Person don't have time for me now, why should I have time for him later? That's why they've become selfish. And it's about them because we stopped teaching them about us. You know, I always say this. Together we stand, divided we fall. Now we shop at the local mall. That's real because we didn't do what it was required. When segregation our monies went around 3-4 times. We got integration, and I found out, well, I'm from Washington, D.C. I could go out in Bethesda, Maryland, or Silver Spring, Maryland, or Arlington, Virginia. Oh, I thought I had made it. When I go out there to the neighborhood and they paint the nasty names on my house, didn't want me there. When my kids went to school out there, if I took them out there, they didn't want them to go to school. We need to stop this and own up to what we have not done. Ishmael Terry, you know, I went, when I met him, he told me that about what they did with him. I went back and did the research. The man is incredible. If my daughters was going to get married, I would want them to marry somebody like him. No, because of the integrity that he brings to the table. The fact that he don't mind calling a spade, and he's going to do the work. What we have now, they're taking over our city wholesale and our state because we're not stepping up like we should. The things that he said about Jocelyn Benson, I forgot about that. She fought for and got that award from President Biden, the Freedom Medal, because she did what she did. She did stand up for Trump and not allow him. In fact, the trifecta, I had to give credit where credit's due. Dana Nessel, Jocelyn Benson, and Governor Gretchen Whitmer, they fought for us. And even though some mega people wanted to come in and try to kidnap the governor, and she kind of shut down for, a year, most people don't understand fear. They don't understand what she went through. So I get it. And as he said, maybe that's the reason they're not going to vote for a black man. But we still owe it to ourselves as the Black Caucuses, as black people, to put our person in the race. And eventually we'll have a breakthrough. None of us gentlemen at this table ever believed that we were going to see a black man become the president of the United States. Not only did he become the president, he thrived.
And was reelected.
And the 85% that he got the first time around by black folk was enough to get him elected. It just wasn't enough this time to get Kamala Harris elected. So we got to go out and work some more.
Sure. Yes, indeed. Yeah, I mean, it's something that, and locally I look at it. I mean, we've made big strides in Macomb County. Melody McGee, the first black city council member in Warren. I mean, think about that now. She just got elected just over, it hasn't even been 2 years, and you're going to first. Well, we need to stop that. We need to make sure that we're there in those places and spaces where decisions are being made. We have to be part of that process. I know a lot of young folks have just looked at it as it doesn't matter. Yeah, it does. Because if you don't pay attention to politics, politics are paying attention to you. So the fact of it is we just can't be like, we make a little gain. And I think that's what happened after, President Obama. A lot of times people thought, oh, look, we've made all this progress, but look at what the backlash was afterwards. So you might as well call it the white lash, because that's really what it was.
Yes.
White folks got up in arms because all of a sudden, not only did he get elected the first time, he got elected twice. There's a reason why 47 came to Macomb County, because he knows he's got rabid supporters there. And my thing is, and I try to get folks in the Democratic Party to understand, is this: stop chasing them. They're a part of the cult. You know what you need to? Go to those folks that are out there that aren't voting, the people that really feel forgotten. Talk about things that are really going to matter to them. How are you going to make, their lives better? Because here's the thing: the federal minimum wage is still $7.25. I know the state one now is $12 something, but for an individual, a single person to live in Macomb County, you got to make $21 an hour just to have a livable wage. A family of 3, 2 adults, 1 child, and only 1 adult working, you got to make $36 an hour. So the thing is, do something. Do something to show that, look, that's what we're all about. Make economics happen. And the fact of it is one of the things why when it comes to Senate and stuff like that, I'm waiting to see who's going to come out for reparations. Because the fact of it is, I see people that are out there and they talking a good game, and I'll go back to Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders has a lot of great ideas. He will not be for reparations. AOC still has not signed on as a co-sponsor for H.R. 40. So that tells me something right there. So you know what? People talk about what goes on in Gaza, and I hate what goes on in Gaza because that's just slaughter over there. But I also got to worry about what's going on here in our community.
And the other piece to that is when the situation came up about Gaza, yes, Hamas, what they did was just horrific. But the response to it was even worse. Let's be real. Then the folks down in Dearborn, and here's the thing, some of the folks were disingenuous, just dishonest, just liars. They came to me and said, okay, Joe, we're going to be voting uncommitted, but we're going to go ahead and vote for Kamala Harris. Not only did they did not vote for Kamala Harris, they still went on and voted for a third party person, or they voted for 47. Now look at what's going on. I was down there, Mrs. Person, we were down there at the Home Depot on Ford Road, and there was an ice truck. I'm saying people think I'm thinking ice like an ice truck with ice. No, I'm talking about ICE that's coming to take, deport people out of our neighborhood. This is our neighborhoods, folks. They're in our neighborhoods. The man did not lie. He told you. When he went over to Bewick and Mac, he says, yeah, I'm coming in here. No, I don't like you, but I'm still going to come in and ask you for your vote. And because those people in Dearborn Heights voted a different way, look at the results of that. They're crying now. They're going through all kind of changes, but they want us to stop what we're doing and come back and help save them. You got to vote with us. Black folks been going through problems of our vote being taken for granted for years, and we always still voted Democratic, or at some years gone by we voted Republican because that was the best person that did by the black people. We're not doing by black people, by the Arab people. Everybody's voting for themselves, and what's happening? Look at us. The Democratic Party is so splintered now to where all of these different places. And so what they've decided is the trifecta. Okay, that was 3 white women. Let's just stick to that. The black folk and everybody will go for that. That's real. So my question becomes to everybody out there in the Democratic world, what are you willing to do? What are you really willing to do? It's time out for this foolishness where it's about me, myself, and I. We got to come together and work together. And if we don't do this, we're going to perish. And you can see it. This is not a joke. This is not a joke.
Yeah, because it's like we have to get back to a sense of community. I know I was listening to what Ishmael said, because I'm a child of the 60s. So growing up, it was a sense of community. People looked out for each other. If you got out of line, didn't have to be your mom or dad to whip your butt. They straighten you out. Now, I'm not all into, violence and all this, and I know I'm not saying that. I'm not saying do that to your kids. But what I'm saying is they could check you, and you knew it was like you had to listen. But somewhere along the line, I always think of it as, what was in the 80s? That one movie they had, Wall Street. What did Michael Douglas say? Greed is good. And that is a direction.
Gordon Gekko, that was his.
Gordon
Gekko, yeah.
That's the direction that we went off on. All of a sudden then, I think somebody was just talking about that. I read this. They said, you got the rich and going to be rich. Our problem is this, everybody's not going to be rich. And if you look, when I was a child, a CEO made on an average of 20 to 26 to 1 for the wage of an average worker. Last year was 268 to 1, and that went down because it was over 300 before. And there's some areas where the CEO is making 500 to 1,000 times more. And look what they've done. A lot of our economic power that we had then has been taken away because the fact of it is we've got a system where it's all about the wealthy. And unfortunately, too many of us are waiting for that winning lottery ticket so we can join them. But we have to start using our power. That's one thing as a community that we can do. But we have to go and say, look, we are not going to accept so little. That's what pushed LBJ, because Dr. King and the rest of them came up and said, we're not taking this anymore.
Well, let's, in the closing seconds that we have with the two of you gentlemen, that let's look at on the local level, you know, in your respective, you know, cities. I know the largest city, I believe, in Macomb County is what? Warren. And then the largest city in Oakland County is what?
Actually, it's Troy, but in terms of the voting block, it's Southfield.
Okay.
We vote.
So let's look at then Southfield. Is there anything, Joe, that you'd like to speak on, especially when it comes down to the persons that are looking for support in the Southfield area?
Well, here's the thing. We have a city clerk race. We Democrats got to get out there and back our Democrats. Everybody keeps talking about it's a nonpartisan. Listen, I'm voting for a Democrat. I'm going to cut to the chase. I'm voting for a Democrat unless they are so sorry, you know, and they're like 47 or something. I'm voting for a Democrat. They may not check all of the boxes that I need to be checked, but if they're going to do right, as Ishmael Terry said, have integrity. Integrity means doing the right thing when nobody's watching.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see that. That's why in Southfield, we got to get some good people on there to help. We're talking about a Miss Ashanti Blonde, who's the school board president, who brought $345 million to Southfield to fix the schools up. What, you know, but the powers that be want to fight against her. They don't want her on the city council. Well, wait a minute. If she brought $345 million to the school board to fix the schools, maybe she can come help fix the streets, the roads, and the other issues that we got in terms of our the Southfield Pavilion. The building is crumbling that we have in Southfield. Maybe they can rebuild this, but also give us some senior centers. They want to have a senior center in the pavilion, Southfield Pavilion. No, take one of those schools that's sitting there closed up and build it into a senior citizen building like they did the Hawk over in Farmington.
Okay, hold on. Let me get to it because we've got probably about a minute left. Joel, is there some, in particular, a local race that you are most interested in?
We have no local races right now but here's the one thing that we do have an opportunity to. They need a new principal at Fitzgerald High School, you know, and it's predominantly us. Now, we have a person that's going to put in for that, or that may have, Ms. Jaja Booker. She's a black female with a PhD in education. Now, the way Warren works is, again, we need support. We need people to write letters to the Fitzgerald, you know, Board of Education, because she tried to get on the Board of Education and wasn't selected. Wow. Even though with all her experience and a PhD. But I want to make sure we can do whatever we can to get her in as principal, because, see, they had problems at Fitzgerald. They closed the library that's across the street from it for a couple hours a day because they were having fights and all kinds of craziness. But I told them, I said, what do those kids have to do? Do you have the gym open? Do you offer some alternatives other than going over there? And it was all a whole bunch of, well, blah, blah, blah. So I guess finally they got that straightened out. But right now, that's really where, as far as I'm concerned, our priority in Warren, because that's really going to make a difference in our community.
Okay. I guess, Joe, you can get the last word then in terms of in this last minute that we've got with the segment. Is there another local issue that you'd like to address?
Let's go to Oakland County, Pontiac. They got a mayoral race going on. They got 7-8 people in there. It's amazing. They're going to split the vote just like the way they split it in the 13th Congressional District and put somebody in that everybody's saying that's not doing anything or doesn't represent the values that we have. They're going to do the same thing in Pontiac. Simple as that. And folks, you need to get out and vote and do your homework on these candidates. Just don't accept somebody because they come in and say, I'm with you. Show the receipts that they've done something for you. I always ask whether it's a white candidate, black candidate, a candidate that's running for office wants an endorsement. What have you done for this community lately? That's what I want to know. I don't want to hear 20 years ago. I want right now, right here, right now.
So, gentlemen, just real quick, just give a quick what needs to be done to get more young people to vote, because that's one of the problems that we've had in the past is the seniors get out and vote.
Yes.
What about trying to get some things to initiatives to get more young people to get out to vote? Joe,
I'd like to see where, we have more initiatives to educate young people, to explain to them what does a city council member do, what was a county commissioner do, what was a state rep, state senator, U.S. congressperson, U.S. senator do. That's first of all. You got to educate people, and especially if you have things on the ballot that are coming up, like some proposals or things like that, you got to educate people, because sometimes they look at it and it's a bunch of legal gobbledygook, and they can't figure it out. So what happens is, what do we tend to do about the things that we don't understand? We avoid it. And I think for a lot of young people, they're avoiding it because they don't understand it. Also, they've got to see an impact in their lives. Yeah. And that's up to elected officials. They've got to make an impact.
Sure.
My trustees, I have 2 trustees. I have out of 3, and one is 39. The other one is 26. They came to me and said, "Chairman Person, we want us to go and look at some environmentalists, the environment." It was incredible when I turned them loose. Okay, write a proposal. Let's get it out there. Those kids went out and knocked 5,000 doors in Salvador. They brought their little crew. Because we put something on the table that they liked. We brought in Jim Nash, who was our water commissioner up in Oakland County, came in and spoke, 45 minutes. He spoke about all of the things that the water commissioner, does in Oakland County. It was incredible because we found out a lot of things we didn't know. They went out, and I mean, when I say they campaigned, he dropped 2 boxes of literature. Those kids went out within a 7-day stretch and put all that literature out everywhere, at the barber shops, the beauty salons, the gas stations, the mechanic shops, everywhere, because we showed an interest in something that they wanted. It can't be just about me and my Social Security and this, that, and other. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to be here. If I get 10 more years out this body, I'm good. But people like Ishmael and under them, they're coming up. Help them. We got to help them help themselves. As Joel say, let's educate them first, but let's take on the issues that concern them, not just our same everyday issues of Social Security, Medicare. We're going to do that, without a doubt. They're going to do that down the road. But right now, let's take on some of the issues that are that's a concern for them.
Yeah, they got to have input, and they got to feel like, they've got to buy into it. And that's the only way you're going to do it, is find out whether it be the environment or, whatever it is. Get them involved in that way.
Entrepreneurship is another
exactly.
thing. They say they're not doing factory no more. They've seen the results of that. They're talking about entrepreneurship, so let's put some money into entrepreneurship and see them spring up.
Yeah, because, the one thing I see is that they're doing so much right there at the Greenfield 8 Mile, that area where Northland used to be at. And that would be a great place to have a lot more, entrepreneurs to put pop-up shops like they do in the Detroit area. But that would be great to see more young people get shops there. You see that out there in places like in Novi at the town center, out there in Novi, the suburban, shopping center. You're seeing them putting up some other little places in the Detroit at the airport, Metro Airport, and even some things over there at the city airport, and then also areas in like the right there 7 Mile, Livernois, in that area. Where are the places then in Macomb County or in Oakland County that you see places like, other than Royal Oak, like you may see where they put up all those, or Birmingham, but in Ferndale, is another place where you see them putting up a lot of, open up a lot of young people putting up businesses at. But where then in Southfield do you see, Joe, that they could put like a little we say it like how they have the Avenue of Fashion. You know,
we're already doing that. That's over there at Northland. Part of that whole process is bringing in young entrepreneurs.
Okay.
But in Oakland County, Pontiac is happening.
Okay.
I mean, they are doing some things, some pop-up, some entrepreneurship. As a matter of fact, Kermit Williams, who's running for mayor up there, is having a series of, I think he called it where do we go from here, or something to that effect, with young people. So they're doing some great things. They're starting to listen. He's listening because, like I said, he's younger than Ishmael Terry is. He's in his early 40s. He was part of the 40 and under. So that's where we're working in Pontiac. We're working in Southfield. But at the same token, all of us who are older, we have to push this. And I'm pushing, like my second chair is 26 years old. I told him, you coming to the table, I want you to write a plan. I want you to do this. We put him on the school board. He's doing a good job on the school board. But he's talking about some other concerns that he has concerns about. As a matter of fact, he'll be coming back into town this next week, and we're going to sit down and talk about some concerns that they have about the entrepreneurship. That's all I'm hearing, entrepreneurship, the environment, and they're also talking conservationists. They're talking about, those are the three things: conservationists, environment, and entrepreneurship. That needs to be the movement in the Democratic Party, in the political parties, to go. The Republicans, they're doing some of that. We have to do it, and we need to move forward instead of backwards.
All right.
Joe?
Yeah, because there are, like downtown Mount Clemens, you know, there's a lot of empty shops there. There's things that could be done. I think the economic development, you know, corporation for the county's trying to do something, but Velocity is also, you know, because I know that they've given some grants and other things for businesses, for people. I know one entrepreneur, they arranged it so she could get money for a food truck, you know, and it's something that's the thing. They need that support, but they need us behind it. Again, the community's got to be involved to say, look, if we're paying taxes into this, then we need to get something back as well. And it's got to be just, you know, not just crumbs. We got to see real money show up to really help, like you say, Joe, those young people to start those businesses.
Well, you know, something just before Tim tells us we got to take another, you know, break. I saw something where somebody was saying that the food trucks, like especially the ones in Detroit, they're taking business away from some of the restaurants, especially like in some of the sporting events, you know, that you see. And the food trucks are going, they're putting their, you know, trucks up on lots or, you know, in parking lots and places like that. And some of the merchants that have restaurants are complaining that they're taking some of their business away. And that's why I was wondering, like in Oakland and Macomb counties, is it inundated with a lot of food trucks in some of the things that you see in and around Oakland and Macomb County?
The food trucks usually come for events like our festivals or our, for example, our Juneteenth events, our Veterans Day, different aspects of how we have big events. They come and they're a part of that. But let's deal with the real question. A lot of the restaurants are talking about people are taking business from them. Why? I went into a restaurant yesterday. The average meal for a salad and some bread was $22. So we're not even talking me, you know, I'm a seafood man. We ain't talking about me eating a lobster or some shrimp or I'm a steak man. It's about the economics. And then a lot of these food trucks were in restaurants and they shut them down because they charge so much for the rent. And one thing about in the black communities, we have to learn to own the property. When you don't own the property, your landlord can go up on the rent and then he removes you out of there and brings somebody else in. So that's the next cycle. That's the next victim of that cycle. Push us, you know, we get in and then you push us out.
Okay. Joe, you got the last word real quick.
Yeah, I would say, you know, we're not having a problem with food trucks because the one thing for sure, Macomb County needs more things than just Coney Islands and Middle Eastern restaurants. So, you know, if people bringing something like that in, and it's usually very small businesses because brick and mortar places. It takes a lot of capital to open something like that up. So you're able to get younger or different, especially you get not just the black community, brown communities and others, they have opportunities with those food trucks because the investment isn't so big to open a brick and mortar place. So no, we don't have a problem with that. And I think right now people are glad to see them.
Well, gentlemen, I can't tell you enough how we're so fortunate to have had you two on for this segment. We got to wrap this segment up because we got another half an hour with Les and with Ishmael. But again, my good friend Joe Person, my good friend Joe Rutherford, thank you for coming on Truth Power. We definitely have to reconvene this conversation very, very soon.
Let's look at doing a town hall somewhere down the road.
That sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Thanks for having
Gentlemen,
us.
thank you for being on.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back with Les Little and with Ishmael Terry to close out the last half an hour of the show.
To the I Love the Hustle show, Saturday afternoons at 12 p.m., followed by Mr. Smooth's Ballroom and Steppers Express Dance Show on WHPR 15.2 Detroit, Apple TV, Roku, and many streaming platforms. See you Saturday.
Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabria, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
Maureen Jackson thought she had it all until she was faced with the challenges of raising an autistic child. Inspired by Autism is her brutally honest journey filled with heartbreak and triumph. Get your copy and find the support you deserve today by visiting www.claudrinejackson.tv.
Justice for Mario Willis. Truth. Facts. Evidence. Matter. Log into justiceformariowillis.com. Read for yourself.
Us on the Truth to Power show. I am Darwin Griffin. I'm your host, and we have back with us again my special guest. That is Mr. Les Little, and he's got The Votes Is Our Voice, and also Ishmael Terry, who's with All for One. But gentlemen, we've had a very engaging hour and a half of conversation, and I know this last half an hour will be just as engaging as the previous hour and a half has been for the show. But I just want to kind of get an opportunity to, in this last half an hour, we know there's a lot of races that are going to be run in Wayne County. And we know that one race that's getting a lot of attention, getting a lot of buzz, is this race for mayor.
Correct.
For the city of Detroit. As many of you know, that Mike Duggan, the current mayor, is not running for re-election, and he served 3 terms. And the first term he ran against Sheriff Benny Napoleon, and he was a write-in candidate. The second term he ran against the current at-large city councilman, and that was Coleman Young Jr. And then the third term that he ran against Anthony Adams, who was the former deputy mayor of the city of Detroit. Now he is running as an independent for the gubernatorial seat for 2026 for the state of Michigan. And he has yet to go and say anyone that he is putting his endorsement on as far as the candidates that are running. There's a lot of interesting names that are in this race. 2 names that are running are currently city council people in the city of Detroit, and that is the city council president, Mary Sheffield, as well as the city councilman in District 7, and that is Fred Durhall Jr. So we've got other people that are in that race that are running, and we're getting a lot of people that are mentioning their names. We see that the pastor of Triumph Church, Pastor Solomon Kinlock, is one of the candidates that's vying for support. We also see prominent businessmen as well as attorney Todd Perkins is also another candidate that is running. And we see the former chair president of Thaw, and that's Chantel Jenkins, is also running. And, several other people that are running, as well. But gentlemen, I just want you to make mention about this race and how close you see this race to be. We know that of all the candidates that are running, the way that the political process is that they will have the vote in August in the primary to narrow it down to the top 2 people that will run against each other in the general election in November. Your thoughts, I'll get to you first, Les, in terms of say what you're hearing in the streets to the suites as to who you think are the candidates that you think may wind up being in the general election come November.
Well, I've just been hearing that none of the candidates that's out there right now are favorable to the folks that's in the streets. Like, I haven't heard anybody make any determination of who they particularly like. They just said they're not happy with any of the candidates because few of the city council people, they have track records and a couple of things that they done wasn't favorable to some of the citizens. So, but me, I'm figuring that the people in the power chair, they're going to wait till after the primary before they make a determination who they want to support on that tip, to the field kind of, get to those 2 candidates that's going to be running.
So let me ask you, Les, then. So what do you say, and then Ishmael, I'll ask you that same question. So what do you say is the main qualities that you would like to see from whoever the new mayor of Detroit would be?
All I can see is Jasmine Crockett. I like her style, and that's what I want to see, a person that's speaking truth to power. And we need a person in office that's going to not be the status quo politician that, is used business as usual. And, you may have to buck your party and a lot of the traditional ideology of the system in itself. So it's hard for me to, because I'm not gonna be happy until I see a real big change in a political party system, because it's not been. It's what Joe and Joe were saying. It's not been stellar for African America.
So you just made me think of another question, and Ishmael, I'm gonna get to you. But the question is Detroit ready for you mentioned about like a Jasmine Crockett type. Yeah. Is Detroit ready for a female mayor?
Well, that's a good question. When Sharon McPhail ran some years ago, even Coleman Young gave her the tap on the shoulder, and she didn't get it because it was a lot of traditional thinking ministers that don't want women to run anything. It's a whole lot of people out there that don't want women to run. They think men should be running the show. Even I heard women say that too. So, but
now you see a lot of women clergy.
Well,
now that are pretty much the pastors,
right,
of churches.
But you're talking to somebody that supported Gerald Sanders when she ran in 2009. She was, I thought, could have been one of the best mayors of this city ever had, because she had the intellect and the vision to run this city. So I'm not opposed to a female running in the city, because it's my big brother say it's time to give women a chance.
All right, Mr. Terry.
Okay. Well, sorry for my facial expression on that. One on the streets today, I'm going to join in with my big brother over here. The streets are saying that it's Sheffield, Kinloch, as the two that's going to run against each other. That's what the political landscape is right now in my circuit. With a narrow Chantel Jenkins, and actually going to surprise you, and a narrow James Craig. So those are the two narrowers that's behind those two. But right now in the lead, it's Sheffield and Kinloch.
Why do you think that? What are you hearing as to why that's the case?
Because you still have my generation and younger loves Mary Sheffield. They do. On the east side, they love her. One, because on the east side, you had to, Alberta, Tinsley Talabi and them was supporting Sheffield over there, deeming her the next queen of the east side. So you have all that generation there. Then she does those Occupy Detroit projects where she bringing bikes and backpacks and all of that stuff to the younger generation. So you have my generation that probably about 25% go and vote, right? So you're talking 45 to 55. Only 45% of those people go to vote. So that 45% loves Mary Sheffield, right? The Solomon Kinloch is getting that because of popularity. So he's getting that number of 32 to 34% because of that popularity of church and things of that nature, right? And being seen, has a lot of visibility. Chantel is getting 27% because she's getting more corporate support and downtown area support. So that helps with Carl Bentley being her husband, staffing solutions. All of that is playing a role in Chantel. Craig is actually getting the governmental support. So the police departments, the sheriff departments, all of them are backing Craig. So we didn't mention Barlow. That's a young man that it's going to take some time for him.
Hashim, I think that's the
I forgot his Michael or something like that.
Yeah.
And then
Joel
the other
Hashim, I think that's his
the
name.
other older gentleman, nobody knows who he is, so he probably going to get 5%, maybe at most 7% in votes. But the two push is Sheffield and Kinloch. Those are the two that's going to get you heavier votes. Kinloch is going to get you probably about 20%, 15% out of District 1, District 2, District 3, he's probably going to get about 5% out of 4. He's going to get probably about 5 to 6% out of 6 and 7.
Do you say that because of the primary turnout always been
so it was slow, and it is slow. You get about from 7, 8 in the morning till probably about 1 o'clock. You start seeing that the numbers are probably about you're going to see them probably about 22 at each polling area, 22 to 28 people turn out.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a low turnout, regardless on the popularity. The actually going to the polls are going to be 28 to 32 people in each poll that comes. That's even your stragglers that comes in about 4, 5, 6 after work. So that's when it's going to push up to about 40, right? 40 to 60 votes, right? Coming out of the polls. Your bigger situations are going to be who can gain access to funding that goes into 3 cycles. And that is what is going to the homes, right? Because the mail-in votes are going to be the ones that's going to win you the election. It's not going to be the polls. It's going to be the mail-in votes. So whoever gets 54% to 56% of the mail-in votes are winner, chicken dinner.
That's usually the senior citizens, though.
That is it.
Yeah.
That and the people who are of my age and higher, probably about up to about 62, 63, they're going to do at-home voting.
Yeah.
So let's look at, gentlemen, the candidates that are running in the different city council races.
Okay.
Let's go District 1, because we know that there's, with the exception of District 6 now, all the incumbents are running for re-election. But you've got 3, right? But you've got 3 districts that have people that are running in those districts that are currently state representatives.
Correct.
And you've got then the state representative running against the incumbent in there. And as people know, you can't run 2 different races.
True.
So you can't run for re-election for city council.
True.
And then also run for mayor of the city of Detroit.
Gotcha.
Because they're the same cycle.
Correct.
Right.
So that affects 2 people. That
Correct.
affects Sheffield
And
it
Durhall.
also affects Durhall Jr. Now you've got state representatives that are vying for those 2 spots.
Correct. But you got to understand, when they turn limit out.
Well, not those 2 spots. I'm sorry. I said those 2 spots.
Okay.
It's different spots. Because it's District 2.
Correct.
District 6 and District 7.
Correct.
So those 3.
Correct.
What were you about to say, Ishmael?
Well, you got to remember, so when y'all blindly voted to extend the term limits, right? It only affected those who were brought in 2019.
Right.
So those
the
who
term
were,
limits for the people that run
so
for
they
state
got
rep.
12 terms. The ones that was in before prior to did not get the 12 term, right? They didn't get them an extension,
Right.
Right. So now you got the Karen Winsett's of the world
That's running in District 7.
Right. You got
Helena Scott.
Helena Scott. You
That's
got
running
all of
District
them.
2.
Correct. So you have all of these
And
individuals.
then you also have
and you got Tyrone
Carter
Carter
running in District 6.
Right. So now their beliefs is that because they were already state legislators or they ran for city council years ago, that they have a chance to win in these seats again. But I remind you, and let's go back to Sheffield and Durhall. It hasn't been a city council member won the mayor's race in the last 34 years. That's never happened. So they have the blackball against them. They have a hill to climb because you never had a city council member ever in 34 years ever win the seat as mayor of the city of Detroit, male or female. So in going back into these city council seats, it's up in the air. You're going, depending on what district you in, if you're in District 6, they took Santiago off. Remember that? Right. Now she's suing the city, right? She would have been running as an incumbent. But because they're rebuilding District 6, right, and rezoning it,
but
she has to go.
We never had a race with this dynamic before.
Correct.
Running like this. So it's a possibility that one of the city council people could win.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Right. Anything is possible in the land of Oz. But the one thing that you have to remember is that one, city council members who are removed. You got to even look at like Dustin Campbell and Denzel Campbell over in District 7, right? Dustin is from Alicia Bell's office, Wayne County Commissioner.
And
Denzel's from Rashida Tlaib.
Right. We got to wrap up.
Okay.
Right.
So I'll just say this real quick. One, I really appreciate you two gentlemen coming on the show today. Les, thank you for coming on. It owed you a visit to come on the show with me.
Right.
Ishmael, as always, appreciate you every time you come on the show. You always go and bring a lot of insight to the public, as far as say, not just in sports, but also in politics.
Yes, sir.
So again, we got to wrap up. This has been a great show. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and I just want to say again, the main thing is all four of my guests have said, do some research, do your homework, and then let your voices count. Again, you've been watching a special edition of Truth to Power. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin, and we'll see you again next week. But I just want to say one last thing before we close off. I want you to keep our general manager, Maxine Willis, and her family in your thoughts and prayers. Again, have a great rest of this afternoon.